Chapter 109, Changing Clothes. Yumo, after transforming into a human form, was somewhat resistant to wearing skirts. So why did she suddenly put on a skirt? This story began half-day ago. Half-day ago, inside a small wooden house in the eastern part of the winter forest. After hearing Kyu's proposal, Yumo, sitting in a chair, thoughtfully lifted her hand to support her chin, tilting her head. If Zio can provide me with the identity of a lady of the Black Rose family, it seems like it would make things much more convenient. But is it really possible? Isn't the identification system for nobles in the Anceta continent, especially for the aristocracy, very strict? If a large force like the Black Rose family suddenly has a new lady appear, wouldn't it arouse suspicion? Wouldn't the Saadic Empire's royal family question it? Yumo slowly voiced her inner doubts. If she could get another noblewoman's cover, it would indeed save her a lot of trouble when she sneaked into the human world later. However, as far as she knew, the noble identities in the Saadic Empire were recorded by the royal Grand Elder. This sudden new lady would not be recognized, unless she underwent some kind of bloodline authentication. But her blood. Go for authentication. Let alone the fact that it would be impossible to succeed. The moment she released her blood, the energy of the shadow power would be unleashed, and the scene would probably turn into a human hell. However, in response to Yumo's concerns, Kyu waved her hand dismissively. Don't worry, Master Yumo. The Saadic Empire's royal family is already in our grasp. The Emperor of the Saadic Empire is very friendly. The Duke just needs to discuss persuade with him, and he will definitely agree. Really? Yes. Q nodded solemnly. Besides, using that slave identity is really inappropriate. Master Yumo, if you want to approach the Chosen One, don't use that kind of identity. Ugh. Seeing that little Tong was so confident and aggressive, Yumo couldn't think of any reason to object. So Yumo reluctantly nodded her head. All right then. Great. Upon hearing this response, Q rarely revealed an excited smile. In front of outsiders, she was the expressionless Lolita commander, but in front of Yumo, she was the expressive little cutie. Then, the excited Q Mingtong immediately took out a beautifully crafted black dress, protected by a magical aura from her spatial ring, and handed it to Yumo with a smile on her face. Lady Yumo, since we're leaving soon, hurry up and change into this Black Rose family dress. Hey! Looking at the exquisite dress in front of her, Yumo was momentarily stunned. This is a custom-made dress for you, that the Duke spent 3 million star source coins on. It's definitely perfect for you. This expensive, it's just a set of clothes, and I haven't agreed to it before. How could you? What if I hadn't agreed just now, wouldn't you be? No worries, Lady Yumo. It's better to be prepared, and besides, our Black Rose family is wealthy, so there's nothing to fear. Yumo for a moment stood still, somewhat at a loss. Well, she might not be able to understand the thoughts of wealthy people. However, as for the skirt, after hesitating a little, Yumo shook her head reluctantly. Never mind, little Tong, skirts aren't really for me. No, how can that be? Lady Yumo, you're so beautiful, it would definitely suit you. It's even tailor-made. Tailor-made. Hearing this, Yumo's brows furrowed slightly. At the same time, Li Yu, who was sitting on the sofa eating desserts, shuddered and lowered her head guiltily. After all, this gray-haired little girl had secretly recorded a lot of data when she was massaging Yumo in the bath. Although Li Yu lowered her head, the two little birds fluttering around her started chirping non-stop and kept flashing across Q Mingtong's line of sight. After being reminded by Xiodi and Xiojing, Q Mingtong's face showed a hint of embarrassment. Realizing that she had accidentally let it slip, she quickly changed the subject. Lady Yumo, it would really look great on you. Please give it a try. We all want to see it too. Qiu Mingtong took Yumo's delicate hand and said sincerely. Well, facing the coaxing, Yumo's tone carried a hint of hesitation. And this hint of hesitation was immediately captured by Qiu Mingtong. After recalling the words of the Duke, Qiu Mingtong suddenly turned her head to look at the three cute little ones sitting on the sofa. All of you support Lady Yumo trying on this skirt, right? With that, Qiu Mingtong, while Yumo was not paying attention, frantically made eye contact with Li Yu, Li Mo, and the half-asleep Shoyu. Oh tilde. Seeing such an eye signal, Shoyu and Li Yu raised their eyebrows, and the two quick-witted little loves instantly understood Qiu Mingtong's intention. They were happy to help. The next moment, the drowsiness in Shoyu's eyes suddenly dissipated, and she floated up from the sofa, drifting excitedly behind Qiu Mingtong, raising both hands. Mommy, I raise both hands in agreement. You have to try it on. At the same time, Li Yu also stood up. The pair of wings compressed behind her back were suddenly released from their restraints, bursting through her clothes. Then, Li Yu pouted, raised both hands and both pairs of wings. Mother, I raise both hands and both wings in agreement. Meow. Seeing her two sisters suddenly express their opinions. Even if Li Mo was slow-witted, she realized the importance of the matter. After being signaled by Qiu Mingtong once more, Li Mo suddenly understood, hurriedly spitting out the fried chicken leg made by Yumo. Under the bewildered gaze of Yumo and the others, Li Mo flipped over and landed on the blanket in front of Yumo, striking a spread eagle pose. Following that, Li Mo raised both hands, both feet, and her snow-white wolf-tail tilde. Mother, I want to see you in a skirt too. I raise both hands, both feet, and my tail in agreement. She seemed ready to make a fuss if her opinion wasn't taken into account. Li Yu, Shoyu, Qiu Mingtong, Yumo. Looking at Li Mo's funny actions and the blue and white striped underwear completely exposed to everyone, the living room fell into a brief and strange silence. This girl, if she ever leaves the forest, wouldn't she just be giving people a free show? Yumo couldn't help but grumble inwardly. As for Li Mo herself, she was completely unaware of this. Still blinking her big eyes, curiously looking around. After a speechless moment, Yumo didn't plan to scold Li Mo for her lack of awareness, but looked hesitantly at her three adorable daughters. Do you all really want to see? We do tilde tilde tilde. The three spoke in unison, letting out a cute sound. Cuteness overload x3. Listening to her daughters' adorable voices and feeling their three pairs of expectant eyes, Yumo couldn't help but purse her lips. After another round of struggle, Yumo suppressed the unknown resistance within her. So, under everyone's anticipatory gaze, Yumo nodded slightly, somewhat shyly taking the black dress from Qiu Mingtong's hand. All right then, I'll try it on. Upon hearing this, Li Yu, Li Mo, and Shoyu immediately showed joy on their faces and unanimously let out delighted sounds. Yay! However, what's wrong, Mommy? How do I put this dress on? Yumo asked, a bit embarrassed. Hearing this, Shoyu suddenly showed a mischievous smile. Don't worry, Mommy, I'll help you put it on. Heh, a perfect opportunity to get close to Mommy tilde. Saying that, Shoyu happily floated over. Just then, Li Yu suddenly raised her hand and grabbed Shoyu's ankle. Due to the external force, Shoyu suddenly fell from the air and smashed a big hole in the floor. As for Li Yu, she pretended not to see it and jumped over Shoyu, coming to Yumo's side with an innocent look on her face. Mother, let me teach you instead. Shoyu has been tired recently. Look at her sleepy face tilde. Who said I'm tired? Li Yu, you've gone too far. With a flash of blue-gold light, under Yumo's helpless gaze, Shoyu suddenly stood up and jumped onto Li Yu's back. Mommy, I'm not sleepy. Li Yu is talking nonsense. Don't believe her. Mother, even if Shoyu isn't sleepy, she sleeps in the lake all day and night and has never learned how to wear such high-end dresses. Let me do it. Who said I don't know how? Such a simple thing do I need to learn? Sister, you should take a break. No, little sister, you rest. There. Seeing her two sisters shaking together, Limo couldn't help but pout unhappily and started waving her hands. Me too. Shut up, big sis. Limo, be quiet. Li Yu and Shoyu shouted in unison. Meow tilde. With that shout, Limo instantly lowered her head in grievance, her fluffy, adorable ears drooping. Whimper. Why can't I do it too? Sob tilde. On the other side, watching Li Yu and the others interact, and Yumo constantly trying to figure out how to wear the dress. Qiu Mingtong, who had been silently watching the drama for a long time, couldn't help but show a satisfied smile, and a touch of admiration surged in her orange-yellow eyes. As expected of the Duke. Indeed, just as the Duke predicted. If only Qiu Mingtong or Li Yu had tried to persuade Yumo, she would probably have opposed. But with all three of them speaking together, Yumo would certainly not refuse. After all, Yumo had always been helpless against the children's coquettishness tilde. However, I also want to be more intimate with Lady Yumo. Thinking about this, Qiu Mingtong showed a mischievous smile. Lady Yumo, let me help you with the dress tilde. The next moment, under the hostile gazes of Shoyu and Li Yu, Qiu Mingtong happily came to Yumo's side. By the way, my lady, how about considering changing your underwear too? Returning to the present. At the central guest house of Linfeng City. Under the moonlight, Miss Yumo left the banquet hall and walked slowly onto the balcony. She then leaned against the railing, enjoying the beautiful moonlight and the brilliant stars in the sky. Recalling the previous scene in her house, where she was forcefully stripped and changed into the dress by those unfilial daughters. A trace of embarrassment and anger appeared in Yumo's beautiful eyes. Those naughty girls, they're really rebellious. If it weren't for her timely use of the feather duster, her underwear would have been stripped off by those naughty girls too. As for why it was so fun, Yumo couldn't help but complain. After a moment of hesitation, Yumo focused her attention on the black evening gown she was wearing. After wearing the long skirt for a day, Yumo no longer felt the initial discomfort. She had grown accustomed to the occasional coolness on her thighs. As for the underwear, at first she was worried that it would be too tight and make her thighs uncomfortable, but after putting it on, it seemed quite comfortable tilde. If there was anything that made her feel uncomfortable today, it was the feeling of being watched with lustful and ravenous gazes. If it weren't for Qiu Mingtong and the Knights of the Black Rose family guarding her, she would have been annoyed to death by those young nobles at tonight's banquet. However, even with the knights guarding her, Yumo still disliked the incessant gazes coming from all around, filled with lust and greed. Yumo knew that her ever-present shadow power would invisibly stimulate people's lust. Most people would be affected unless they had been trained or had strong willpower. For this reason, after disguising herself as the Black Rose family's young lady, Yumo deliberately concealed her aura. Now, outsiders should not be affected, right? Why, then, did these people still seem to have lost their minds to lust? Or could it be they just wanted to climb the ranks of the Black Rose family? They wanted to gain her favor and establish a connection with the Black Rose family. And it seemed that I had underestimated the influence of the Black Rose family. In this case, assuming the identity of their young lady might also bring some trouble for myself. But no matter what, unable to endure those gazes and endless small talk, Yumo left the scene to Qiu Mingtong. Under the protection of several black knights, Yumo came to the balcony for some fresh air. She enjoyed the moonlight while waiting for the tedious banquet to end. However, seems like staying here isn't such a good idea either. Yumo sighed helplessly. Then, the dark-haired girl looked at the other corner of the balcony with mixed feelings. At this moment, accompanied by a low panting sound, a brown-haired young man in gorgeous clothing climbed onto the balcony under Yumo's watchful gaze. Obviously, outside the balcony door, there were knights from the Black Rose family guarding it, so those who wanted to see Yumo had to find another way to visit. Just like this young man, who climbed up 5 floors directly. By the way, isn't the security here too terrible? They just let someone climb up like this. Yumo couldn't help but complain. The next moment, after seeing Yumo, the brown-haired man immediately dusted himself off and assumed an elegant gentleman's demeanor. Then, the nobleman bowed respectfully. "Hello, Miss Yu of the Black Rose family. Welcome to the city of Wind Linfeng. I am, What's going on, a butterfly?" However, before the brown-haired man could finish his self-introduction, a crimson butterfly suddenly entered his field of vision, causing him to shudder and be completely baffled. What's going on? Where did this butterfly come from? Then, before he could figure out what was happening, a golden powder gradually scattered onto the brown-haired man's face. The next moment, an irresistible drowsiness suddenly struck the brown-haired man's heart. In this way, the man fell to the ground, unconscious from the sleep powder of the blood butterfly before he could finish speaking. The sound of his fall, however, caused the black knights outside the door to startle, immediately breaking in and drawing the long swords at their waists. "Lady Yumo, are you all right?" The knight's words were filled with worry. Hearing this, Yumo, who was leaning on the balcony, helplessly waved her hand, signaling the black knights not to worry. "It's fine, just a clown. Calm down." "Yes, my lady," the 2 black knights replied in unison. "Then, how should we deal with this person?" Looking at the unconscious brown-haired man, one of the black knights asked curiously. Regarding this, Yumo glanced at him indifferently. "It doesn't matter, you guys handle it yourselves." "Yes, my lady." "Also, tell Qiu Mingtong that I won't be staying here. I'm going back to the guesthouse's lounge. Leave the banquet matters to her." "Understood, my lady," the 2 black knights replied respectfully. After responding lightly, a red light gradually enveloped Yumo's body. The next moment, under the slightly astonished gazes of the 2 black knights, Yumo's body suddenly disintegrated, turning into a burst of red light and disappearing in front of them. A moment later, in a VIP room at the guest house, countless crimson light points suddenly appeared in the empty living room. Accompanied by a slight surge of shadow power, these light points quickly gathered towards a central point like they had received a summons, condensing into the figure of a young girl. In the blink of an eye, as the power stabilized, a stunning black-haired girl appeared in the living room. Without a doubt, this young girl was Yumo. It seems pretty good. Looking down at the exquisite black dress on her body, Yumo couldn't help but show a satisfied smile. Under normal circumstances, when Yumo transformed her body into a concentrated crimson shadow power and reassembled it, she would undoubtedly enter an awkward naked state. After all, clothes couldn't be turned into energy like her body. So every time, after transforming into an energy state, the clothes on her body would awkwardly remain in place. Therefore, to avoid such embarrassing and shameful streaking situations, Yumo usually wouldn't turn her body into energy, even if it was more convenient at times. But now, it didn't matter, because she had this dress Tilda. At this moment, the dress Yumo was wearing wasn't ordinary attire. The main reason this dress was so valuable was that it used a rare material called memory fiber. Clothes made from this material could break down and merge into the crimson light when driven by shadow silence power or other forces, along with Yumo's body. When Yumo reassembled her human body, the memory fiber would attach itself to her delicate figure, reforming into a black evening gown. Of course, to ensure that she wasn't vacuum-sealed after the dress was reformed, Yumo reluctantly put on the set of women's underwear Zia had prepared. Sigh. Goodbye, my dignity. Yumo sighed helplessly in her heart. While sighing, she looked at the stunning reflection in the mirror beside her and couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Looking at her beautiful self in the mirror, she seemed to understand why those nobles had been so infatuated with her. Seeing that no one was around, Yumo couldn't help but imitate the fashion models in her memory, striking a few seductive poses in front of the mirror, including some alluring ones Tilda. Indeed, it's quite beautiful. Yumo couldn't help but exclaim in her heart. However, Yumo soon stopped her coquettish behavior due to her inner embarrassment. Forget it. No more posing, it's a bit awkward. Sigh. Let's get back to business. With that thought, Yumo slowly grasped the communication magic stone on the table beside her. The next moment, accompanied by a surge of crimson shadow power, the communication magic stone gradually emitted a pale blue light. Then, a warm, magnetic male voice suddenly came from the magic stone. Master Yumo, you finally contacted me. The voice was filled with gentleness, respect, and strong excitement. It was evident that the owner of the voice was delighted upon hearing Yumo's words. Upon hearing the familiar voice, Yumo couldn't help but smile slightly, sitting down on the sofa. Yes, it's been a long time since we've chatted, Zio. It was evident. The one speaking to Yumo now was the head of the Black Rose family, and one of the humans who had grown up in the cold winter forest. Zio Black Rose. By the way, first of all, thank you for the dress. It's beautiful and very practical. I'm so glad you like it. How about I get you a few more next time? No, that's enough. It's all right, just one or two more would do. You are now the young lady of our Black Rose family. Wearing just one dress would be laughed at by others. I see then, all right. Oh, Master Yumo, you specifically contacted me with the communication magic stone at this time. Is there anything urgent? Is it urgent? Seemingly detecting a hint of anxiety in Zio's words, Yumo frowned and hurriedly asked with an apologetic tone. Sorry, did I interrupt you? If so, I can contact you later. You can go on with your work. After all, Zio was the Duke of the Black Rose family, managing such a vast territory and must be quite busy. Yumo didn't want to disturb him, besides, it seemed to be rest time right now. On the other end, thousands of miles away, inside the Sadik Empire Palace shrouded in darkness. Upon hearing Yumo's words, the black-haired man standing in a pool of blood, covered in blood, hurriedly showed a frightened expression. No problem, no problem. Master Yumo, I've already taken care of things here. You're not interrupting at all. The black-haired man said somewhat anxiously to the communication magic stone. At this moment, lying at the black-haired man's feet was an old man with white hair and a crown on his head, gasping for breath and on the verge of death. Long ago, on a certain day in the cold winter forest, within the demon palace, a disheveled black-haired little boy, sobbing uncontrollably, stood in the hall with a face full of sadness and despair. In the quiet hall, the only sound was the boys crying, with complete silence otherwise. Countless abyssal demons outside the hall had also fallen silent at this moment. As the boy continued to sob, a gentle and comforting voice, like a delicate spring, softly entered the boy's heart. "What's wrong, little one? Why are you crying so sadly?" "Sister Yumo." Upon hearing the girl's voice in his heart, the little boy, still crying, raised his head, looking at the fluttering blood-red butterflies in the sky above. Apparently, upon hearing the name Sister Yumo, the blood butterflies suddenly trembled, but Yumo had no energy to care about it now. What she prioritized was to comfort the little boy in front of her. "Can you tell sister why you're crying, Zio?" "Sister Yumo, father doesn't want me anymore, asterisk sob asterisk. He left me behind and walked away, sob asterisk." "That's not true. Your father left you here to practice diligently, just like the previous heads of the Black Rose family." "No, he must not want me. I'm so worthless, I will never become the head of the family." "Why do you say that?" "I'm already 10 years old, but I only have second-tier strength, and I'm so weak I can't even hold a sword." "Second-tier, huh? Compared to previous generations, it is indeed a bit. No, don't mind what I just said. But why do you insist on holding a sword?" Yumo asked in confusion. To this, the little boy replied matter-of-factly. Because all the previous heads of the Black Rose family were knights, they were all swordmaster experts. If I want to become the head of the family, I must. Sai, you don't need to be so obsessed with being a swordmaster. You are definitely not worthless. Your talent doesn't lie in swordsmanship. Besides, the Black Rose family has never said that you must practice swordsmanship. But father and the others. That brat, never mind, in any case, don't worry about this. I'll train you to become a qualified family head, one that will make your father very satisfied," Yumo said confidently. Upon hearing these words, the little boy gradually stopped crying. "Really? Really? More real than pearls, Yumo continued to coax. Seeing the little boy no longer crying, Yumo felt a great burden lifted from her heart. Then, with a surge of crimson shadow power, waves of red light gradually converged, forming an energy arm. Under Yumo's control, the energy arm reached out to the little boy. "But before becoming a qualified family head, we must fill our stomachs first, right?" At these words, the little boy covered his stomach and blushed. Lowering his head, he responded somewhat shyly. "Oh." Saying this, the little boy was led by Yumo's energy arm, walking slowly towards the depths of the demon palace. "By the way, wait a second. The dishes on the left side were made by me, so you can eat them. As for those on the right side, they were made by my daughter Li Yu. If you don't want to die on the spot, I suggest you don't try them, Huh. Recalling the first time they met over 100 years ago, Zio's timid and shrinking appearance, his fearful voice, and now hearing Zio's confident and reliable tone, Yumo couldn't help but feel emotional about how fast the children have grown. Come to think of it, hasn't it been a long time since they last saw each other? Is Zio an old man now? Oh no. Now he has already broken through to the rank of magic god. After reaching the 8th rank, he will become young again, and his lifespan will greatly increase. No wonder his voice sounds so young. Yumo, who was communicating via a magic stone while sitting on the sofa, made an "I see" expression and cutely nodded her head. While Yumo was reminiscing about the past, Zio's curious voice came from the communication magic stone. "Master Yumo, you just mentioned the current plan, what is it?" Hearing that, Yumo restrained her emotional feelings and put on a serious expression. "Oh that? Well, according to your previous report, The infighting among the human forces on the Ansita continent is severe, right? Even within the Asumos Church, because of the existence of the three archbishops, they are divided into three factions, each fighting against each other. Yes, that's right. Didn't we say that before? They can't possibly deal with the invasion of the abyssal demons in this state. So, I plan to mix in with the Chosen One, help her unite the Asumos Church internally, and then go find the prince and have Mengzai join forces with him to integrate the entire Ansita continent's forces into a single power. Only then can they have the possibility of invading the Winter Forest. Is that so? Upon hearing Yumo's words, Zio's tone changed slightly. After a moment of eerie silence, Zio's voice slowly came from the communication magic stone. Master Yumo, may I ask you a question? And what's the matter? Why so serious all of a sudden? Master Yumo, is your reason for wanting to integrate these forces still hopping that they could invade the Winter Forest and kill you? Well. Hearing that, Yumo was slightly stunned, and after a helpless sigh she nodded. Yeah. So, can I ask why? Upon hearing this question again, and feeling the concern in Zio's tone, Yumo's crimson eyes revealed a hint of struggle. She really wanted to tell Zio and the others about the trial mission so they wouldn't have to worry so much. After all, her death in her own words is not the same as the death they understand. However, even if she wanted to say it, she couldn't. That power was constantly restricting her, forcing her to carry out the mission while also preventing her from revealing some truths to others. Sigh. Every time she thought about it, Yumo felt helpless. After another sigh, Yumo apologized. Sorry, for now I can't tell you. Is that so? Zio's voice sounded somewhat disappointed, but he seemed to have anticipated Yumo's answer and quickly adjusted his emotions, concealing his sense of loss. I understand, Master Yumo. So, Master, is there anything else I can help you with? Actually, I've been observing the relationship between the Satic Empire and the Snow Knight and Red Lotus Leaf Empires has always been tense. And now, the influence of the Black Rose family within the Satic Empire has grown considerably. So, Master, do you want the Black Rose family to help improve the relationship between the Satic Empire and the other two empires? Yes, more or less that's the idea. All right, Master Yumo, I understand. Although I can't guarantee improvement, I will do my best. Okay, thank you. No problem, this is what I should do. You don't need to feel burdened. After all, the existence of our Black Rose family is to serve you. Hearing these words, Yumo couldn't help but smile. She hadn't expected that the people she had inadvertently saved 500 years ago would end up helping her so much. Speaking of which, as if she had thought of something, Yumo continued. By the way, Zio. Yes, is there anything else you'd like to ask, Master Yumo? Do you know of any suitable weapons for the Chosen One on the continent? Swords or the like? Weapons? Why are you asking this all of a sudden? Well, mainly, I want to find a suitable weapon for the heroine. As she said this, Yumo's expression became somewhat strange. The reason she suddenly mentioned this was that she was not satisfied with Meng Zai's weapon. Before, in the small Hasu, she had just wanted to borrow Meng Zai's sword to shave her teeth. Unexpectedly, the sword had shattered. After all, Meng Zai was the Chosen One. She really didn't understand why the Asumos Church didn't provide her with a decent sword. Never mind. If the Asumos Church couldn't provide the heroine with a good weapon, she would do it herself. That's why Yumo asked Zio about weapons. Fortunately, Zio was as reliable as ever. Upon hearing Yumo's question, a suitable option popped into his mind. Speaking of which, there is a sword that seems quite suitable for the Chosen One. Which one? The one from the elf race, the transformed holy sword. Oh, that does seem like a good choice. After all, it's called the holy sword, it must be good. However, will the elf race be willing to lend such a treasure? He. Upon hearing this, Zio, who was thousands of miles away, revealed a slightly gloomy smile. Don't worry, master. The elf race and our family have always had a very good relationship. I'll visit them personally. There won't be any problems. Capital of Sadic Empire, Rubiton. Under the illumination of the night sky, everything appeared so serene. At this moment, the heavily guarded imperial palace was also equally tranquil. Accompanied by crisp footsteps, a black-haired man dressed in a dashing military coat was leisurely strolling through the palace hall, holding a blue-glowing communication magic stone in his hand. After a brief exchange, the melodious voice of Yu Mo, as enchanting as a songbird, gradually entered the black-haired man's ears. So then I'll leave it to you. The black-haired man, who was Zio, smiled slightly and confidently said, No problem, Master Yumo, just leave it to me. I won't disappoint you. All right, let's leave it at that. Also, even as a god of law, you must remember to take care of your body and don't get too tired. Don't worry, Master Yumo, I'll take good care of myself. As the final farewell words entered his ears, the light around the communication magic stone gradually faded. And the very moment the conversation with Yu Mo ended, the warm atmosphere that had pervaded the palace hall suddenly vanished, replaced by an extreme coldness and murderous intent. The terrifying chill and bone-chilling killing intent made the white-bearded old man, who was kneeling at the black-haired man's feet, shudder violently, his soul almost frozen. However, as a monarch, the white-haired old man forcefully suppressed his fear, barely managed to prop himself up with his scepter, and stared at Zio with angry eyes. Black Rose Duke, is that woman the one who ordered you to do this? Ahem. Hearing this, Zio frowned and quickly waved his hand to deny it. Don't misunderstand, Your Majesty. Master Yu Mo is very benevolent and would never issue such an order. The desire to annihilate your royal family is purely my own idea. Zio smiled faintly, his smile filled with an overbearing aura and despicable mockery. Upon hearing this, the white-bearded old man, who was the emperor of the Sadic Empire, Ropchai, clenched his fists in anger and asked hysterically, Why then, we have treated your family well, we even granted you the title of Duke. Why would you betray us? Oh. Zio's eyes became more mocking. Your Majesty treating us well. That's not quite accurate, is it? Everyone knows that you wanted to balance power, and besides, you don't really think I'm unaware of who was behind my father's death, do you? It seems it was you, Your Majesty, pretending to be attacked by abyssal demons. That seems like a good excuse. No, that's impossible. How could you know this? Hearing this, the old emperor, who had planned to play the sympathy card, suddenly turned pale. In response, Zio couldn't help but let out a disdainful laugh. The dozens of Black Rose family knights guarding the palace hall also couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Hearing the ridicule and the laughter, the humiliated Ropchai clenched his teeth and fists tightly, blood seeping from between his fingers. Knowing that appealing to emotions was futile, Ropchai's face suddenly contorted, his tone carrying a hint of threatening malice. Zio, don't be so smug. We don't know who will have the last laugh yet. Wait till the Imperial Guards arrive. Then it'll be your death sentence. What? However, as Ropchai was trying to intimidate his opponents, he abruptly stopped speaking. He stared in disbelief at the scene behind Zio. At that moment, accompanied by a powerful surge of energy, a giant man nearly 3 meters tall, wielding a huge axe and clad in black armor, strode into the hall. In his left hand, he held the head of the commander of the Imperial Guards, Lacaro. Glimpsing the deputy commander of the Black Rose Knights behind him, Zio laughed meaningfully. "Your Majesty, what were you trying to say just now?" How is this possible?" Lacaro was a seventh-tier sword saint. How could he die so easily? And with him dead, wouldn't the entire Imperial Guard be? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ropechai pressed his hand against his head, screaming hysterically. "What have you done? There are only 40-something people in your Black Rose family. My Imperial Guards have 500. How could they be defeated?" Ropechai's eyes were bloodshot, and upon seeing his last resort killed so unexpectedly, the Emperor of the Sadic Empire seemed to be on the verge of a mental breakdown. Looking at the pitiful figure of the former emperor, Zio shook his head in disappointment. 40 people defeating the elite Imperial Guards might be hard to believe for others. But for Zio, it was entirely expected. The members of the Black Rose Knights were all children who had returned from the harsh winter forest. They were the talented children captured from the Anceta continent by the divine punishment, set as sacrifices for the demon gods. Having survived their journey to the palace of 10,000 demons, they were undoubtedly stronger than their peers. Their willpower had also been tempered by their experiences, making them fearless of hardship and difficulty. After all, they had already cheated death countless times at such a young age. These children, after rigorous training, grew into the Knights of the Black Rose family. The Black Rose Knights had accompanied Zio in his conquests, unifying the southeastern part of the Sadic Empire. How could the royal guards, nothing but a bunch of good-for-nothing drunkards, stand a chance against such a formidable force? However, Ropechai couldn't understand this, and could only continue raging angrily in impotence. This can't be possible." No longer interested in the former emperor's ranting, Zio said calmly, "Your Majesty, rest in peace." As he spoke, Zio waved his hand, and a black ball of compressed magic instantly formed in his palm. In the next moment, under the horrified gazes of countless royal family members, Ropechai's brain was pierced by the black magic ball, killing him instantly. He died a gruesome death in a pool of blood. Seeing this, the dozens of royal family members captured nearby displayed expressions of despair, desperately pleading for mercy from Zio. These once lofty princes, princesses, and consorts now wailed without any royal dignity, eliciting disdainful laughter from the Black Knights. In order not to let the clamor disturb the Duke, 2 Black Knights guarding the royal family members exchanged glances, drew their swords from their waists, and prepared to send them all to the afterlife. However, at this moment, Zio raised his hand and stopped the 2 knights. "Forget it, let them live." The 2 knights were somewhat confused. Wasn't the plan to annihilate the royal family tonight? Why the sudden change? But while the 2 knights were puzzled, Zio smiled meaningfully, looking at a ragged, black-haired boy lying on the ground. "You're the 8th Prince Leo, right?" Yes, your grace, I am Leo." Upon hearing Zio's call, the 14-year-old boy named Leo immediately crawled towards Zio. At this, Zio smiled with satisfaction, patting the young prince's head with the sole of his foot. "From now on, you will be the Emperor of the Sadic Empire." As soon as these words were spoken, Leo was dumbstruck on the spot. In fact, not only the 8th Prince, but also other royal family members and even Zio's own Black Rose family were bewildered. Everyone couldn't help but gaze at Zio with astonishment. A short while later, escorted by dozens of Black Knights, Zio leisurely walked out of the bloodstained palace. As for Leo Luo Pei and the other royal family members, Zio left them to be dealt with by his secretary Wanya. If all went well in a few days, the Sadic Empire would see the coronation of a new emperor. However, as they watched Zio's retreating figure, many Black Rose Knights behind him were still confused. After all, according to the original plan, they were supposed to completely annihilate the royal family and take control of the Sadic Empire. But now, puzzled, one of the deputies couldn't help but ask, "Your Grace, weren't we supposed to seize power? Why are we leaving the royal family intact?" Hearing his subordinate's confusion, Zio smiled meaningfully. "It doesn't matter. Our goal is to control the entire empire, whether directly or through a puppet. There isn't much difference between the two. If anything, this is more advantageous for us." Advantageous? Yes, think about it. The royal family has ruled the empire for more than 300 years and still has considerable prestige among the people. If we were to usurp the throne directly, we might face resistance. Resistance? Just eliminate it, the deputy commander grumbled nearby. At this, Zio neither agreed nor disagreed, nodding his head. "Yes, but that's not the main reason." "Then what is it?" "Master Yu Mo wishes for the various empires to get along and unite once again. As the Black Rose family, we naturally must obey orders, right?" "What do you mean?" Our family will cooperate and help restore the relationships between nations. However, if the Sadic Empire's royal family doesn't cooperate or even tries to interfere, they can't blame us, right?" As he spoke, a chilling smile gradually appeared on Zio's face, causing the surrounding Black Rose family members to shudder. Fortunately, Zio quickly reined in his cold demeanor. Soon after, Zio seemed to think of something and looked thoughtfully at his deputy. "By the way, Wanya, what can I do for you, Your Grace?" "Help me find Inferno. I need her to do me a favor." "Inferno? What do you need her for?" Upon hearing the name of the demonic existence, the deputy clearly displayed fear. At this, Zio smiled slightly. "Sai, the female lead has always been protected by Master Yu Mo, hasn't she? It's not easy to make a move. In that case, we can only ask someone for help, starting with taking care of the Child of Destiny." The perspective shifts back to the guest house in the city of Wind Linfeng. As night deepens, the evening banquet temporarily concludes. With the end of the feast, local nobles and wealthy merchants leave the guest house one after another, while members of the Black Rose family return to their respective rooms to rest. The entire guest house subsequently becomes silent. Taking advantage of the quiet night, our Yumo stealthily leaves her room. Turning into countless blood butterflies, she quickly arrives at another corner of the guest house, where Meng Zai is currently situated. Thanks to the efforts of the Black Rose family, Meng Zai has already been treated as an injured person and placed here, waiting for the members of the Church of Asumos to claim her. As for security, it is jointly handled by the Black Rose family and the guards of the city of Wind Linfeng. After confirming that there's nobody around, Yumo approaches Meng Zai's room and carefully opens the door. With the door opening, the stunningly beautiful silver-haired girl lies asleep on the bed, appearing before Yumo. At this moment, Meng Zai, after being cared for by the guesthouse maids, has taken off her blood-stained clothes, cleaned up, and changed into a simple white cotton nightgown. Of course, the quality of the nightgown is incomparable to the lace one provided by Yumo earlier, but it's already considered of high quality within the City of Wind. The entire bedroom is relatively luxurious. It can be seen that the people of the City of Wind, despite their hostility towards the Church of Asumos, are still meticulous in their treatment of the Child of Destiny. Considering the Snow Knight Empire's prince launched a magic energy fission bomb targeting Meng Zai, Yumo worried that Meng Zai might be attacked by assassins sent by the royal family. Now it seems her worries were unfounded. The previous bombing was likely the lone act of the third prince. The Snow Knight royal family is currently actively negotiating with the Red Lotus Empire and the Asumos Church. The environment appears quite decent. However, the service seems to be lacking. Looking at Meng's exposed upper body, not properly covered by the quilt, Yumo couldn't help but feel slightly displeased. Although the room is heated, she could still catch a cold if the quilt isn't covering her properly. With that thought, Yumo slowly sits by Meng's bedside and carefully covers the silver-haired girl with the quilt. Is the divine energy nearby getting stronger? It seems that Meng's is really recovering. Thinking about this, Yumo smiles with relief. Then, Yumo gently lifts her hand to caress Meng's delicate face, feeling the soft and bouncy touch. Yumo can't help but show a bitter smile. Recalling the little girl who always acted spoiled and cute, hugging her and calling her big sister, Yumo feels a bit sad knowing she might never see her again. However, it's an inevitable situation. After all, the heroine will recover sooner or later and return to the church, and she can't be in a childish state forever. However, recalling Meng's strange behavior in the bath earlier, Yumo can't help but frown again. Sometimes, she even wonders if this girl has genuinely become childish. Therefore, to be on the safe side, Yumo calls on Shu Yue to cover Meng's experiences during this time with a false dream. This way, even if Meng's is pretending, she won't remember herself. If she isn't pretending, it will prevent her from recalling these days. After all, Yumo is also worried that Meng's will remember her kindness and hesitate to take action against her in the future. But no matter what, keep going. Your journey is still long, little cutie Tilda. Smiling slightly, Yumo playfully pinches Meng's cheek. However, while pinching, Yumo is still very vigilant, watching the silver-haired girl carefully, fearing she might suddenly open her eyes again. Having been startled several times before, Yumo has developed a slight shadow in her heart. After visiting the heroine, Yumo slowly gets up. Of course, she doesn't plan to return to her original room, but instead goes to the living room as planned. After all, she intends to continue accompanying Meng's as a slave girl once Meng's wakes up in a few days. The heroine's current strength is still insufficient, and there is still a long way to go. Oh, and she has to help her deal with some internal troubles within the church. So goodbye, Big Sister Tilda. Using the previous slave girl's tone, Yumo playfully says in her heart. Then, Yumo carefully closes the door. After returning to the living room, a flash of crimson shadowy power transforms Yumo into a delicate pink-haired little girl. However, as she suppresses her power, she quickly realizes a very awkward problem. She forgot to change her clothes. Glancing at the black dress on her delicate body, which has become extremely ill-fitting due to her body shrinking, an embarrassed expression appears on Yumo's face. Never mind, I will go back and change into another set of clothes first. After all, the people outside are from the Black Rose family. With Yumo's departure, the bedroom once again returns to its previous silence. The girl lying on the bed keeps her eyes closed, showing no signs of waking up. Clearly, this time, Meng's doesn't suddenly sit up like before but remains immersed in the world of dreams. However, while Meng's doesn't react, another presence in the room becomes restless. After confirming that Yumo has left, Meng's chest suddenly radiates a soft golden light. As the golden light shines, Meng's already ample chest rises even further, to an enviable extent. Of course, it's not because Meng's chest suddenly had a second growth spurt. In the next moment, with the light dispersing, the quilt covering Meng's chest is suddenly pushed away. A cute creature with ruby-red eyes, a pure white body resembling both a cat and a rabbit, sits on Meng's chest. Oh my, that scared me. It thought it was discovered. Whoa, that woman actually came to the city of Wind too. How on earth did she get in? A being resembling a cute cat and named Little Sakura panted anxiously. If it weren't for the red light flickering outside the bedroom that she saw just now, and hid herself in Mengxi's spiritual world like before, she would have been caught by that woman. Although the woman didn't attack Mengxi for some reason. Who knows if she will be attacked next time? After all, her body is entirely made of the goddess's divine power. It can be said that her body is a taunt to the abyssal demon. Once caught, she'd likely be devoured alive. Because of this, Mengxi had been hiding her breath in her spiritual world during their time in the winter forest. It wasn't until today, when she no longer felt the horrifying pressure, that she secretly slipped out of Mengxi's body. Of course, little Sakura's mind was quite complex at the moment. At first, she thought that the abyssal demon wanted to keep Mengxi in the winter forest. Unexpectedly, when she sensed that there was no one else around and came out to observe, she was astonished to find that they had returned to the human domain, to the City of Wind. Although she didn't know why that terrifying woman let them return, little Sakura was still overjoyed. Well, although she was almost discovered just now. Fortunately, she was clever and hid in time. A close call, a close call. If something really happened, how would she explain it to Lord Lin Ling? Never mind. Don't think about those things for now. What's important is Mengxi's physical condition. After taking a long breath, the cat creature refocused her attention on Mengxi's pretty face. A pale golden divine power gradually gathered around little Sakura and covered Mengxi's body. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with Mengxi, little Sakura breathed a sigh of relief. But the next moment, her red eyes suddenly flashed with seriousness. This? What is this? Mengxi's spirit was covered with some energy. Is this the power of the shadow? The moment she realized this, little Sakura's face showed anger, and she snorted coldly with a not surprising tone. HMPH tilde. I knew that woman wouldn't be kind-hearted. She would never just let Miss Mengxi return to human society like this. They must have tampered with Mengxi's memories. Do they want to turn Miss Mengxi into one of them? Then join forces to destroy the church and the human resistance forces. As expected of an abyssal demon, truly despicable. However, the next moment, a strong golden light suddenly bloomed around little Sakura and slowly flowed into Mengxi's mind. HMPH, with me here your plans will never succeed. Although my physical strength is weak, but my spiritual power is very terrifying tilde. So, under the continuous cleansing of little Sakura's golden divine power, in Mengxi's body, the power left by Shoyu was gradually worn away bit by bit. My head hurts. What happened to me? I remember being at the Galrose fortress. After seeing those butterflies and that woman, I seemed to have fainted. And then, what happened next? These memories, the house in the winter forest, and the black-haired woman. Why are my memories so blurry? Strange. Could it be? Little Sakura. As little Sakura's power continuously poured into Mengxi's body, the silver-haired girl's sleeping consciousness gradually regained control of her body. Slowly, Mengxi suppressed the overwhelming drowsiness and slowly opened her eyes, forcing her consciousness to return to reality. However, at the beginning of her return, everything was so blurry, and the spinning sensation made Mengxi feel extremely uncomfortable. As time went by, Mengxi's vision gradually cleared, and her senses slowly returned to normal. Then the unfamiliar ceiling suddenly appeared in the girl's sight, causing Mengxi to frown slightly. What is this place? Where am I? On the other side, Seeing Mengzai wake up smoothly, the little creature resembling a cat was immediately excited and affectionately rubbed Mengzai's face. Its cheerful voice entered Mengzai's ears. "Woo woo woo, that's great. Woo woo woo, Miss Mengzai, it's so good that you're all right." "Hi, little Sakura." Looking at the companion who was rubbing her face, Mengzai smiled helplessly, raised her hand to touch little Sakura's head, and signaled that there was no need to worry. "All right, I'm fine." With that, Mengzai took a deep breath, slowly sat up from the bed, and began to look around with great confusion. What is this place? It should be the guest house of Linfeng City. Little Sakura, who was standing on Mengzai's shoulder, replied. Hearing this, Mengzai's brows furrowed slightly. Guest house in Linfeng City, how did I get here? I'm not sure. I've been hiding in your mental space and don't know what happened. Is that so? But Mengzai, are you all right? All right. Yeah, after you were taken to the winter forest, did that damned woman do anything to you? Did she bully you, torture you, or interrogate you? Little Sakura asked anxiously. After hearing this, Mengzai's pale purple eyes showed a hint of unusual emotion. That woman, the one with black hair, the one who always has blood butterflies around her, little Sakura explained. You are talking about Sister Yumo. Yumo, is that her name? Mengzai, why are you calling her sister? She's a demon. Little Sakura's voice was unintentionally filled with excitement. Because she was surprised to find that, after mentioning that woman, her mistress's eyes did not have the hatred that should be present when dealing with demons. Instead, it was a complicated emotion. This inevitably made this little cat feel very bad. Could it be? Mengzai's brainwashing hasn't been lifted. Miss Mengzai, wait, let me check you again. With that, golden divine power once again surged around little Sakura. However, at this very moment, seemingly guessing what Sakura was thinking, Mengxi's little hand suddenly touched her soft head. It's all right, there's no need to check anymore. I haven't been brainwashed. Are you sure? I'm fine. But why? That woman is a demon from the abyss. In response to this question, Mengxi shook her head helplessly. It's a bit complicated. Complicated? Yeah, let me think quietly for a bit. Upon hearing this, Sakura nodded slightly. Seeing Mengxi's tangled expression, she remained silent, then turned into a golden light and entered Mengxi's body. The silver-haired girl gazed thoughtfully at the night sky outside the window, her light purple eyes slightly narrowed. The image of the black-haired girl, who had been with her for the past few days, gradually surfaced in Mengxi's mind like a slideshow. Sister she's quite a strange person. I shouldn't say person, should I say demon, right? Abyssal demons. Shouldn't all these creatures hate the holy aura in my body? Every abyssal demon I've encountered in the past has tried to kill me. Not only did she not try to kill me, but she even saved me. At first, I thought she had ulterior motives. But while I pretended to be a child, I didn't see her doing anything with bad intentions, and she even took care of me meticulously. Moreover, she gave me medicine to help me increase my strength, and they were all rare and precious medicines. Even though she's an abyssal demon, and a high-ranking one at that, she can heal, cook, and take care of people. It's like the perfect wife and mother. How strange. The more Mengxi thought about it, the more she recalled her days in that house, the more puzzled she became, and numerous question marks appeared around her. Sister Yumo, what do you want? Mengxi was confused. This humanoid abyssal demon seemed to have no malice toward her. After spending so much time together, even when Mengxi was initially rude and attacked her, she didn't show any intent to kill, only to control her. Yumo's power was undoubtedly the power of shadows, and she could command abyssal demons. She must be a Demon King level being, a humanoid Demon King. The power of shadows had the ability to infect all living beings. Could it be that the girl was a human who had been infected by the power of shadows and transformed into a Demon King level abyssal demon, and then, by chance, retained her sanity, which is why she took care of Menxi so humanely? It must be the case. There are Demon King level abyssal demons that were once divine beasts, magical beasts and fairies. Why couldn't there be ones that were once human? Menxi, who had come up with a rough guess, stood up slowly from the bed under Sakura's bewildered gaze, her hand propping her chin. However, having only taken a few steps, Menxi couldn't help but frown. Nevertheless, if Yumo's sister no, if that woman was indeed transformed from a human, what about the other girls beside her? Their auras seemed like abyssal demons too, right? Although Menxi had completely sealed her own power to act, she couldn't sense the strength of Limo Liu and the others, but she could still determine that those girls were abyssal demons. And after thinking about those girls, Menxi was even more confused. There are so many humanoid, rational abyssal demons. Weren't all abyssal demons, except for the Demon King level ones, supposed to be mindless? Could those few abyssal demons also be Demon King level? Can Demon King level demons take human form and be so well behaved? Weren't Demon King level demons just slightly intelligent beasts? After realizing this point, Miss Menxi couldn't help but put a big question mark on the information system of the church. After all, according to her own life records in the house, many of the things the church had taught her didn't quite match reality. Speaking of which, those girls called Yumo mother, didn't they? Menxi frowned. Is Yumo married? Then, who is the father of those two children? No. That's not right. After a moment's thought, Menxi shook her head decisively, throwing the idea out of her mind. After all, one of the girls seemed to be a transformed wolf and the other a transformed bird. How could they possibly be Yumo's daughters? Moreover, Menxi had confirmed through various means during their shared bath. Yumo should be a virgin. And it's strange, I really don't understand. Menxi's mind was quite confused at the moment. Never mind. There's no point thinking about it. Anyway, although she didn't know why, Yumo indeed hadn't hurt her and had even brought her back. At least, she should have no malice towards Menxi. But why did she do that? Menxi and the so-called Chosen One are the future greatest enemies of the abyssal demons. Why would a Demon King level being help the enemy? What is her real purpose? You are very important to me, Tilda. Important? Why did she say that? Recalling the words Yumo spoke when they bathed together, Menxi asked herself again. Unfortunately, it seems that she still cannot understand the answer to this question. However, glancing at the empty room around her, Menxi's brow furrowed slightly. To be honest, being taken care of felt quite nice. But now that I've returned to Linfeng City, I probably won't see her again for a while, right? If given the chance, I really would like to have a good talk with her. Thinking of this, Menxi sighed helplessly. After all, the other party was in the winter forest, and it seemed a bit difficult for her to find Yumo. Sigh. I'm a bit thirsty. After thinking for a long time, the dryness in her throat made Menxi feel slightly uncomfortable. So, the frowning girl, dragging her still somewhat weak figure, put on a simple cotton coat and headed to the living room to find some water to drink. However, the moment she opened the door, Menxi's light purple eyes slightly narrowed. Huh? Is it her? At this moment, a delicate-looking little girl sat silently on the sofa with her eyes closed. And this pink-haired girl, Menxi naturally knew quite well, as she was the very same pink-haired little girl she had rescued from the Abyssal Demon's clutches. The moment she saw this little girl, seeing that she was safe and sound, Menxi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It seems, back then she had managed to escape. There, there. No, that's not right. Why is she here? If this is the guest house, the people of Linfeng City wouldn't allow her in as a slave. Moreover, this pose. Looking at the motionless pink-haired girl who didn't even seem to breathe, like a sculpture, Menxi recalled the familiar animal skin underwear she had seen in the bathroom. A black silhouette gradually appeared in Menxi's mind and slowly overlapped with the scene before her. The next moment, a meaningful smile slowly surfaced on Menxi's face. Oh, I see, so that's what's going on, Tilda. At this moment, completely unaware that Menxi had already awakened, and not realizing that she herself was being watched, Miss Yumo. After transforming into the appearance of the pink-haired little girl from before, in order to pass the dull and boring evening, Yumo once again entered a motionless meditative state. Her thoughts entered her inner consciousness, and she began to ponder some serious issues. The first one, it's about her own identity. Previously, she had gained a lot of favor from Menxi as the pink-haired little girl, and now that Menxi had woken up and found her waiting in the living room, she would probably be even more touched. When the time came, it would definitely be no problem for her to stay by Menxi's side and help her grow. At least Menxi would agree. However, the issue was with the Asumo's church. Judging from the information given by Xiao, along with the previous reactions of and the others, it's not hard to tell that the Asumo's church has an extreme disdain for slaves. The higher-ups of the church were likely unwilling to allow someone of such low status to stay by the side of the noble chosen one. And it's true. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have chosen the slave identity. Now it has caused some trouble. Moreover, besides the issue of identity, there was another matter that needed careful consideration. What to do with the girl who had received her power, the prototype for her current appearance. Initially, she thought that the girl would most likely fail after receiving her power, but from the information that Li Yu had given her, it seemed that the chaotic power of shadow inside the cocoon was gradually stabilizing. In that case, she might indeed become the 7th Demon King level existence. A Demon King level with the body of holy light. It was indeed a good thing that the girl had managed to survive, but it also brought Yumo a dilemma, which was the issue of education. Unlike the children who were originally spirit beasts or demonic beasts, this little girl was a genuine human being. She had more of her own thoughts, and her heart might even harbor a disgust for abyssal demons. Such a girl seemed a bit difficult to control in the future, right? Additionally, there was another issue that bothered Yumo, which was the matter of taking care of the house. After all, this was the first time in more than 500 years that she would be leaving the cold winter forest for such a long time. When she thought of the 3 little ones responsible for managing the abyssal demons, Yumo couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of unease. And will Li Yu and the others be okay? They shouldn't cause any trouble, right? However, just as Yumo's thoughts were focused on the children in the forest, a familiar fragrance of hawthorn flowers suddenly rushed into her nose. Soon after, a pair of delicate and warm little hands wrapped around Yumo from behind. 2 soft mounds were also pressed against Yumo's back. Although the assailant didn't use any force and didn't harbor any ill intent, being suddenly embraced like this, Yumo still felt a shock. Immediately breaking free from her motionless statue mode, Yumo looked at the silver-haired girl who was pressing her face against her own with some surprise. Menged. No, she couldn't call her that. They weren't in the small cabin now. Realizing this, Yumo quickly adjusted her tone and expression, speaking timidly and feigning surprise. Sister, you're awake." Hearing Yumo's cute words, and seeing the excitement and joy on the pink-haired girl's adorable face, Menxi revealed a very gentle, somewhat meaningful, sweet smile. Undoubtedly, with Menxi's goddess-like appearance and such a sweet smile, anyone's heart would be melted. Yumo was no exception, feeling a slight warmth in her heart. However, why does it feel like there's a chill? Although it was such a beautiful smile, it made Miss Yumo inexplicably shiver all over. Before Yumo could figure out what was going on, Yumo's body suddenly became weightless. "Hey!" Yumo let out a soft cry of surprise. "Sister, what are you doing?" It was obvious that Yumo, who had temporarily transformed into a little girl, was now being directly lifted off the chair by Menxi. In response to Yumo's exclamation, Menxi said indifferently, "It's cold outside. Sitting in the chair, you'll catch a chill. Come to the bedroom. Also, I need a body pillow." A body pillow, sister, what are you? However, before Yumo could finish speaking, Menxi unilaterally and assertively embraced the pink-haired girl in her arms. After that, entering the room, closing the door, dragging her onto the bed, removing her outerwear, covering her with a blanket, hugging the girl. All these actions were done in one fluid motion. By the time Yumo realized what was happening, she was already firmly locked in bed by Menxi, completely turned into a body pillow. This. Looking at the beautiful silver-haired girl beside her who had closed her eyes and quickly fallen asleep, feeling her regular breaths, Yumo couldn't help but reveal a dumbfounded look. Well, although it was a good thing that the female lead didn't mind her, and was even willing to sleep while hugging her, at least it showed that her efforts to gain favor before had yielded some results. But why did it feel like this situation seemed a bit familiar? She had been held like this by Menxi in the cold winter forest before. Could it be that Menxi had a habit of sleeping while hugging someone? And fine, since that's the case, she might as well indulge her. After all, she is now set as a soft and weak little girl who can't resist. If she can't resist, then just enjoy it, Tilda, Yumo optimistically thought. So Yumo returned to her spiritual space, surrounded by Menxi's jasmine scent, and once again began pondering the various important questions from before. As a result, the pink-haired little girl Yumo had transformed into gradually fell into a deep sleep, becoming a truly dedicated body pillow, nestled in Menxi's arms, motionless Tilda. Just like that, time passed by, second by second. Almost an hour later, after confirming that Yumo had indeed entered statue mode, Menxi, who had been pretending to sleep for quite some time, slowly opened her light purple eyes and carefully examined the pink-haired girl in front of her, though she looked quite different from the black-haired girl she knew. But she's indeed the same person, Tilda. Thinking this, Menxi couldn't help but smile slightly. It seems Yumo is really trying to get close to me on purpose, even disguising herself as a little girl to stay by my side. Her disguise is not too bad. Unfortunately, there are some details, Tilda. After realizing the truth, Menxi didn't get angry. Instead, she revealed a playful smile. Yumo, what exactly are you trying to do? Menxi still had no idea about Yumo's purpose. The only thing Menxi was certain of was that this human-shaped abyss demon held no hostility towards her and even took great care of her. In that case, even if she exposed Yumo, she wouldn't be able to do anything to her right now. So why not let her stay by her side and see if she could figure out her true intentions. Additionally, although Yumo might still possess some humanity, Menxi wasn't sure of her attitude towards other Abyss demons. Since she's different from other Abyss demons, Menxi might as well try to bring her fully into the human camp. To do this, it's necessary to win her favor. If she can fill Yumo's favorability gauge, perhaps she could lure her into helping during future battles against the Abyss demons. In that case, the difficulty of defeating the Abyss demons would surely decrease significantly. Also, the most crucial point. Sigh. My naive Yumotilda. Did you know that when you enter a daydreaming state, a faint trace of the power of shadow seeps from your body? This power, for me, it's quite a supplement, Tilda. Thinking this, Menxi hugged the sleeping, pink-haired little girl even tighter, sticking as close to her as possible, just like the situation in the small house before. In this close contact, the power of silence that unconsciously overflowed from Yumo's body continuously flowed into Menxi's body. The beautiful silver-haired girl revealed a satisfied smile. Itadakimasu, thanks for the treat, Tilda. In the early morning, our Yumo is feeling a bit complicated at the moment. Back in the cold winter forest, little Menxi often acted cute and asked to sleep with Sister Yumo. At first, Yumo agreed, because who could refuse such a cute child? Besides, Yumo had always been weak when it came to children. However, after sleeping together once, Yumo refused to continue being the little girl's body pillow. After putting her to sleep, she carefully sat on a chair nearby, entering the statue mode. The main reason she didn't want to stick close to such an adorable child was little Menxi's sleeping posture was just too terrible. Terrible to the point of being infuriating. After leaving the statue mode, Yumo was shocked by the sight before her eyes. Menxi, who had been holding her tightly while lying in bed, had now rolled off the bed with the sheets and blankets. Before, Menxi was hugging her neck, but now, Menxi had somehow ended up hugging her thigh, clinging to her like a sloth. A smooth and fair, slender and lovely leg was tightly wrapped around her waist, and those delicate and fair feet were resting on her face. Should I say that Menxi is truly the heroine? Even her little feet had a hint of a unique fragrance. What am I thinking? After shaking off the strange thoughts in her head, Miss Yumo looked helplessly at the beautiful silver-haired girl who clung to her like an octopus. However, as soon as she lowered her head, Yumo's deep blue eyes narrowed slightly. Because, due to their positions, when she lowered her head, Menxi's cotton underwear was exposed to her view. Although she had seen Menxi's underwear many times before and even helped her change them in the past few days. Seeing such an alluring sight early in the morning still made Yumo's cheeks flush slightly. Frowning a little. Really? Despite being the chosen one. Such a beautiful and adorable girl, how could her sleeping posture be so terrible? Also, what happened last night? Why did it become like this? Yumo couldn't help but complain in her heart. However, it seems she could only adapt to this situation as soon as possible. After all, they were not in the cold winter forest anymore, and her current identity was a soft and weak slave girl. To blend in with the female lead, she needed to act more convincingly. It seems she could only pretend to resist. Therefore, considering that Menxi might often ask her to be a body pillow in the future, she should adapt to this kind of life as soon as possible. But wouldn't it be too fake to be wrapped like this and not move at all? Thinking about it, Yumo began her struggle. Of course, to avoid arousing Menxi's suspicions and to not expose her identity, Yumo always kept her strength within the realm of a little girl. However, this force was enough to wake up the female lead. After sensing the struggling of the little girl in her arms, the silver-haired girl's body trembled slightly, and she slowly opened her sleepy eyes. After letting go of Yumo's thigh, Menxi climbed to Yumo's face, and her smooth silver hair brushed against Yumo's cheek. "Good morning, little." As she spoke, Menxi got up and stretched contentedly. Then her light purple eyes stared at Yumo with a hint of deep meaning. "By the way, little sister, what's your name?" "Hug." Upon hearing this, Yumo, who had just gotten up from the floor and was putting on her coat, couldn't help but be taken aback. Under normal circumstances, shouldn't she ask where they were first? Well, no, she must have asked that last night, right? Yes. Although puzzled in her heart, Yumo chose to prioritize answering Menxi's question. Of course, Yumo wouldn't tell the truth, but instead used the excuse she had prepared in advance. "Well, sister, I don't remember. After being caught by those people before, I don't remember anything from before." "Oh, I see." Huh. Hearing Menxi's unquestioning words, Yumo couldn't help but be surprised. That's it, she believes me just like that. I prepared the other excuses for nothing. Before Yumo could regain her senses, Menxi's face suddenly came close to hers, causing her to retreat several steps. "Sister, since you don't remember, let me give you a name, all right? What do you think?" Yes," Yumo said with slight excitement. After all, letting Menxi give her disguised identity a name was part of Miss Yumo's original plan. Yumo couldn't help but feel joy in her heart for the smooth progress of the plan. However, in the next instant, Yumo's body shuddered suddenly. "Then let's call you Ziomo. How do you like it?" This name." The moment she heard the name, Yumo's whole body stiffened. After all, Ziomo seemed a bit too close to her real name, right? She didn't found my disguise, did she? With doubt in her heart, Yumo slowly looked up and met Menxi's beautiful light purple eyes. Her eyes were filled with an inviolable sanctity, full of gentleness and expectation, and there wasn't a trace of hostility or suspicion. Was that my imagination? Yumo comforted herself in her heart. Then she pretended to show a bright and delighted smile. "Why, yes, I love the name sister picked." Hearing her words, Menxi smiled slightly, and then, with a puzzled look, she glanced around the room and out the window, before deliberately asking the question Yumo had been waiting for. "By the way, Ziomo, where are we?" Hearing this question, Yumo breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. That's right. This is the key question. Taking a deep breath, Yumo began her pretentious explanation. "That day after you fainted, sister, the soldiers of Linfeng City." Yes, yes. Yumo enthusiastically began recounting history, while Menxi silently leaned against the windowsill, quietly watching the pink-haired girl in front of her, occasionally asking a few questions in response. A hint of unnoticeable amusement gradually spilled out from the silver-haired girl's light purple eyes. In this way, time ticked away, and Yumo's explanation came to an end. After listening to the pink-haired girl's words, Menxi suddenly clasped her hands together, putting on an "I see" expression. "So that's what happened. That was a close call, wasn't it, Tilda?" Having said that, Menxi, who had changed into tattered knight's armor, cast a grateful look at Yumo. "Well, thank you for taking care of me recently." This time, her words carried genuine sincerity. "It's nothing, you're welcome." Yumo showed a sweet smile. But just then, Yumo furrowed her brow. Although she was completely suppressed, Yumo could still sense the nearby situation. At this moment, several powerful divine auras abruptly intruded into her perception. A few seconds later, Menxi's beautiful eyebrows also furrowed, and she looked somewhat displeased at the bedroom door to her side. The next moment, boom! Miss Mengsi, are you all right? Accompanied by an anxious, deep roar, the room's door was suddenly flung open. A nearly 2-meter tall, muscular man with striking red hair, similar to Saya people, barged into Mengsi's boudoir. Behind him were several knights of the church and a panting, young priestess. Judging from the emblem on the red-haired man's chest and the strong divine aura around him, it wasn't difficult to determine that this red-haired man was one of the 10 apostles of the church. Upon arriving at Mengsi's room, the fiery man looked at the stunning silver-haired woman leaning against the windowsill with extremely excited and ecstatic eyes. At the same time, his gaze fell on the pink-haired little girl next to her. After noticing the slave tattoo on the pink-haired girl's ankle, the red-haired man suddenly showed an expression of disgust and disdain. Where did this trash come from? How dare she appear in the room of the chosen one? Get lost. As he spoke, an astonishing divine aura suddenly erupted from the red-haired man's body, crashing towards the delicate, pink-haired girl like an overwhelming wave. Clearly, this red-haired man despised slaves and didn't want to touch them, so he intended to use a storm of divine aura to repel the pink-haired girl. After realizing this, Yumo pursed her lips. Wait, speaking of which, should I pretend to be blown away? If we reach 75 power stones, I will post till chapter 120 today, so give me your treasure. Gravacute 1. The red-haired man with a Saiyan-like hairstyle, named Cabin, was one of the apostles of Earth under Archbishop Nick. Ranked 7th among the 10 great heroes, although he was also a Saiyan-tranked expert, his strength far surpassed that of Pix, who had ventured into the winter forest previously. This time, he was dispatched by Archbishop Nick to Linfeng City with only one purpose: to find the long-missing chosen woman and the heavenly apostle Lord Bai Yanluo. After searching fruitlessly for several days, he became impatient and restless. He even expanded the search area, storming into the nearby kingdoms bordering the Snow Knight Empire. Naturally, this move aroused dissatisfaction among the kingdoms, but they kept their silence out of respect for the church. Yesterday, upon learning that the Black Rose family had found and brought back Mengzai, he hurried back to Linfeng City with his team, day and night. Worried about the Chosen One's safety, he pushed past the maids blocking him at the guest house and rushed into Mengzai's room on his own. Seeing that the future saintess was unharmed, Cabin couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although Bai Yanluo's whereabouts were still unknown, Mengzai's safety meant he could temporarily appease Archbishop Nick's desperate summoning. However, just as he let out a sigh of relief, Cabin noticed the slave girl standing in the room. Instantly, a feeling of disgust rose from his heart. Like most members of the church, Cabin had a strict sense of class hierarchy in his heart. Among them, slaves were undoubtedly the lowest level. The girl before him looked somewhat attractive, but there was a good chance she had already been played with. How could such a filthy existence be allowed near the Chosen One? With that thought, without any hesitation, Cabin unleashed the powerful flame attribute sacred power from within his body. Covering the sky and the earth, it rushed toward the delicate little girl, intending to knock her flying. And then, Cabin was dumbfounded. Because after a surge of power was released, the girl still stood silently in place, as if nothing had happened. Her deep blue eyes blinked, just curiously looking at him like that. In an instant, countless question marks filled Cabin's mind. What's going on? His own pressure was ineffective. How could this be? Could it be that this lowly slave had some special artifact on her? Moreover, a mere slave, how dare she stare at me like that? Staring intently at the pink-haired girl's eyes, a burst of anger suddenly erupted from Cabin's gaze. Damn thing, get lost. Seeing that the pressure didn't work, Cabin swung his thick arm, preparing to directly knock the pink-haired girl flying. At that moment, Meng Zai, who could no longer bear to watch, suddenly furrowed her brows, and an inexplicable anger emerged in her light purple eyes. The next instant, Meng Zai transformed into a silver light, and with the speed of lightning, she rushed in front of Cabin. "It's you who should get lost." Before the words had even fallen, relying solely on her raw power, Meng Zai suddenly threw a punch. The next moment, under the astonished gaze of the church knights and the sister of the church, the unprepared Cabin was instantly hit in the face by Meng Zai's punch. In an instant, the violent force and wind pressure spread out. With a bewildered expression, Cabin was suddenly sent flying by Meng Zai's punch. The protective red light on his body also rapidly disintegrated. Boom! Accompanied by a loud bang, Cabin's body suddenly smashed a large hole in the wall and passed through it, falling directly into the ice lake outside. "Miss Meng Zai, you reached the 6th stage." Seeing this scene, the knight couldn't help but let out a gasp of surprise. After all, judging from the density of the sacred power Meng Zai just released, this chosen woman had undoubtedly reached the strength of the middle-ranked 6th stage. Just over a week ago, she was only at the middle-ranked 5th stage. Even for a genius within the church, it would take many years of cultivation to advance from the 5th to the 6th stage. How did Miss Meng Zai directly reach the 6th stage? Not even the early stage, but the middle stage. Even as the chosen woman. That's too damn fast. At this moment, everyone was already enveloped in a stunned atmosphere, staring at Miss Meng Zai in amazement. For a moment, the bedroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. As for the person involved, Meng Zai also seemed very surprised, looking at her right hand with disbelief, her light purple eyes filled with incredulous emotions. Seeing this scene, especially after seeing the heroine knock out the sane-tranked man with a single punch, Yumo couldn't help but cover her mouth and giggle. Her heart was filled with satisfaction. It seemed that the medicine she had given the heroine before was effective. Hey Tilda. Yumo secretly rejoiced in her heart. The stronger the protagonist, the happier she was, of course, Tilda. However, Yumo, as she was now, naturally couldn't know that the silver-haired girl's astonished expression was just an act, and the reason Meng Zai did so was to show off for a certain little girl secretly gloating nearby Tilda after all. How could Meng Zai, who had been awake all these days, not know about the changes in her own body? On the other hand, after a burst of secret delight, Yumo suddenly felt something was wrong. The increase in Meng Zai's strength was naturally within her expectations, but according to the original plan, Meng Zai should have only advanced to the early stage of the 6th stage, right? How? How did she suddenly reach the middle stage of the 6th stage? Could it be? The drug was stronger than I anticipated. Thinking of this, Yumo's deep blue eyes couldn't help but reveal a hint of doubt. Just then, after regaining his composure, Cabin, who had been knocked away by Meng Zai, immediately turned into a red light, dragging his wet body back into Meng Zai's room. Subsequently, under the uneasy gazes of the crowd, Cabin raised his hand and pointed at Yumo, then looked questioningly at the silver-haired girl. "Miss Meng Zai, what are you doing, attacking me for the sake of a slave?" However, facing the furious Cabin, Meng Zai remained calm and composed, even choosing to temporarily ignore the enraged Earth hero. Then, the silver-haired girl walked slowly over to Yumo and gently said, "Little Mo, go out and have fun for a while. Leave this to your sister." But what if? "Don't worry, trust me." "Okay." Seeing Meng Zai insist, Yumo naturally wouldn't continue to object. They were all from the church, and Yumo wasn't worried that Cabin would hurt Meng Zai. After all, though fierce, he ultimately seemed quite timid. So, under the slightly displeased gaze of Cabin, Yumo leisurely walked out of the bedroom and out of the guest suite. During this time, the pink-haired girl couldn't help but cast a glance with her peripheral vision at the gloomy-faced Earth hero behind her. Inadvertently, a hint of disdain appeared on Yumo's face. Although Ming Zai's attack was a sneak one. But this guy was supposedly one of the elite heroes of the church, right? And he was just sent flying like that. One has to say, he's really weak. Never mind, I wouldn't think about it anymore and just go out for a stroll. Meng Zai and the others probably had important matters to discuss. Meanwhile, in the north, in the capital of the Oro Kingdom, in the western part of the Snow Knight Empire, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, a pure white light suddenly descended from the sky. The next instant, accompanied by the dissipation of the light attribute's sacred power, a breathtakingly beautiful but disheveled, ragged girl appeared in everyone's sight. Looking at the disheveled, scantily clad girl, who seemed to have been through some ordeal, the people immediately began to gossip. Some indecent words gradually reached the white-haired girl's ears. The girl frowned slightly. Get lost. After a cold snort, terrifying sacred power fluctuations suddenly spread, instantly causing hundreds of onlookers to faint. Meanwhile, the girl herself dragged her exhausted body and walked slowly into the city. Undoubtedly, the girl who appeared in the north, possessing a dense sacred power, was naturally the recently awakened Bai Yanluo Tilda. At this moment, Bai Yanluo was extremely exhausted and weak, but her blue eyes were filled with a chilling coldness. Damn it! They actually bombarded me with a magic energy fission bomb. Damn you, Zutiano, I'll remember this. Inside the capital of the Oro Kingdom. After releasing the holy power to stun a group of people, the rest scattered in panic. The guards of the capital chose to keep their distance from the white-haired girl. Even though the white-haired girl was in an extremely weak state, she was still an authentic sword god expert. Even if she was seriously injured, she was not someone that their small kingdom could provoke. Moreover, this girl who used holy power was very likely to be an apostle of the church. Hence, no one dared to gossip about Miss Bai Yanluo anymore. However, the absence of the noise did not improve the gloomy girl's condition. At this moment, Bai Yanluo's mood was incredibly terrible. Realizing that she had been tricked by the Snow Knight Empire and Zhu Tianao's weapon, Bai Yanluo's heart had been filled with rage. What's even worse, when she woke up, she was actually in the deep mountains of the Oro Kingdom's border, and she almost got swallowed by a giant toad. Although she had woken up in time and kicked the giant toad away, its thick phlegm had still splattered all over Bai Yanluo. She was indeed an experienced swordsman, but at the same time, she was also a clean girl. Naturally, she was furious at being covered in such disgusting liquid. Apart from the disgusting liquid on her body, various kinds of pain were also constantly coming from all over her body after she woke up, especially her head and face. At that time it seemed, I didn't take the magic energy fission bomb with her face, did I? Why were these two parts hurting so much? Bai Yanluo became even more confused and couldn't help but raise her hand to hold her head and touch her red nose. For a moment, this heaven apostle who had been fighting on the battlefield for many years seemed like a pitiful girl who had been bullied. Tilda. Ah, it hurts so much. After touching the lump on her head, Bai Yanluo couldn't help but feel so much pain that her face twisted. What's going on? This doesn't seem like being hit by an explosion, does it? It's more like being beaten. Could it be? When I landed head first. Bai Yanluo became increasingly baffled. Moreover, besides her head and face, Vague pain sensations came from time to time from other parts of her body as well. The pain on her limbs was fine. But the key is, why does my butt hurt so much too? Covering her butt, Bai Yanluo couldn't help but limp as she walked, which was precisely why there were so many people suspecting that she had been assaulted when she had just entered the city. After all, the tragic fate of female knights was not an uncommon thing and not surprising. If it weren't for the fact that she was sure her body was still pure, Bai Yanluo would have suspected that she had been assaulted by some humanoid creature while she was unconscious in the forest. Of course, Bai Yanluo at this moment couldn't even imagine in her dreams that the reason her butt hurt so much was purely the result of revenge from a certain demon king-tier wolf girl. After getting her butt smacked with a feather duster, Li Mo vented her grievances on Bai Yanluo's butt. It hurts so much. Bai Yanluo was very depressed and even muttered to herself in her heart. She was, after all, someone who was afraid of pain. However, on the surface, she still maintained a strong and cold demeanor. After all, as an apostle of the church, she couldn't tarnish the reputation of the church. But still, woo, it hurts so much. Suppressing her pain and inner grievances, Bai Yanluo's blue eyes quickly scanned the shops on the street. It was evident that the weakened Bai Yanluo was now searching for a pharmacy. She needed to purchase some medicine to accelerate her power recovery so that she could regain at least 30% of her strength as soon as possible. Then, I would return to the Galrose fortress and look for Meng Zai. Who knew how Meng Zai had been during the days she was unconscious? The child of destiny must not be in any trouble. Thinking about this, Bai Yanluo couldn't help but feel anxious. She even felt the urge to cry. However, as she was searching, Bai Yanluo suddenly realized a serious problem. Subsequently, the woman slowly lowered her head to look at her body. In an instant, Bai Yanluo's brows furrowed. Everything's gone. Yes, Miss Bai discovered that. Besides her clothes, everything else, such as her weapon, space ring, black card, diamond card, and the chip she had saved, all seemed to have been plundered, all gone. It must have been lost during the previous explosion, right? Damn Snow Knight Empire, I will have my revenge. So, under the fearful gaze of the nearby residents, the white-haired girl, who seemed to have some issues with her head, began to stomp the ground furiously. This instantly plunged the capital into a continuous mild earthquake. However, throwing a tantrum was one thing. Bai had a serious problem to face. That was, she was out of money. She needed to buy medicine and scrolls, but she had no money. Although Bai Yanluo enjoyed gambling and was somewhat scornful in her daily life, she still adhered to the basic teachings. She wouldn't do anything illegal or disorderly for money. That was her principle. But, without money, how was she supposed to buy medicine? Or should she earn money first? But how could she earn money now? It seemed that aside from fighting, she wasn't good at anything else. Even though she was a sword god, she always got cheated when gambling. Bai Yanluo found herself in a dilemma. And just at that moment, as she anxiously looked around, Bai Yanluo's eyes suddenly narrowed. She noticed a somewhat familiar shop. Wait, this shop. Looking at the inconspicuous magic bookstore at the street corner, a trace of astonishment appeared in Bai Yanluo's blue eyes. That bookstore also had a branch in the red lotus leaf capital. If there were scrolls for restoring magic, why not? Give it a try and test her luck. With that thought, Bai Yanluo, holding her breath, slowly walked towards the bookstore. As she pushed open the door, countless books were suddenly displayed before Bai Yanluo. The shop looked ordinary from the outside, but the interior was exceptionally extraordinary. Aside from the books, A cute little girl with huge blue butterfly bows and aqua blue twin tails, sweeping the floor, also appeared in Bai Yanluo's view. After blinking her lavender gem-like eyes, the little girl curiously looked at the disheveled big sister who had suddenly entered the shop. Then, unexpectedly to Bai Yanluo, this delicate little girl didn't greet her, the customer, upon seeing her. Instead, she put down the broom, slowly turned around, and shouted to the second floor of the bookstore. "Mom, Bai Yanluo is here, Tilda. How did she know who I am? Didn't I conceal my aura? Wait a minute. What on earth is Yanluo?" Upon hearing the little girl's shout, Bai Yanluo suddenly narrowed her eyes and cautiously looked at the little girl and the second floor of the bookstore. The next moment, following the little girl's call, a slightly charming and somewhat dissatisfied female voice slowly came from the second floor. "Linksy, haven't we said before that we should be quiet in the bookstore, Tilda?" Accompanied by the voice, an elegant woman with 5 or 6 magic books floating around her slowly walked into Bai Yanluo's sight. The woman appeared to be about 17 or 18 years old, with a full figure, graceful movements, and dignified manners. Her platinum hair was smooth and beautiful, her skin like jade, and her eyes charming. Every frown and smile revealed an indescribable charm and maturity, as well as a hint of inexplicable dangerous aura. The woman was dressed in a simple brown plaid skirt, her slender legs covered with milky white suspender stockings. Her beautiful platinum hair was held up in a simple bun with a hairpin draped over her shoulders. Obviously, the woman possessed a captivating, mature beauty. However, what was most attractive were the 2 fluffy fox ears on top of the woman's head. Nevertheless, upon seeing the bookstore owner, especially after seeing those fluffy ears, Bai Yanluo's eyes suddenly narrowed, and her blue eyes were filled with astonishment and a hint of wariness. The next moment, Bai Yanluo couldn't help but raise her finger to point forward. Why are you, the treacherous merchant, here?" Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story. And if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.